Don't let the base budge. Glazing, glossing, corrective toning. So many different options, so many different things that you could do when toning. And just as much as we've come to understand how important an Instagram filter is to changing someone's entire look, that's exactly how important the toning process is, because it has the ability to make or break your client's whole color service. Now, when it comes to toning, there are 3 questions you have to ask yourself before deciding even what kind of hair color you're going to use. So that's exactly like toning, and knowing what you're choosing and what you're using and why is really going to add just that extra level of kind of masterful skillfulness to the color, and really help you put your signature look on and stamp on someone's very specific hair needs and color needs. Sometimes they have porosity issues, and we need to know how to formulate for all of these problems. And they can have a lot of problems on one head of hair. The roots, the mids, the ends could all need something different. So you're seeing more of the tonality and less of that, like, say you were gonna put a solid color on somebody and it's lifting their hair and depositing color and changing the hair completely. I wanna cover the different options that you have, and why you would grab for one versus the other, and why there really is no wrong answer, and why you have to formulate differently for each particular client that you have. So when asking yourself about lift, if you want it to lift or if you do not want it to lift, that's automatically gonna tell you, do you want something alkaline or do you want something acidic? And if you are looking for something that's acidic and has less effect on each individual hair shaft, so in keeping it closest to the hair's natural pH as possible is where you always want to end at. So, so talking about lift, that brings us to base adjustments, breaking the base, and getting those shifts in the base. And then level 7 and above, I usually don't want any shift so that their hair grows out really soft and beautifully. And really think about, when I talk about some of the ingredients and the pH levels and the developers, what that would translate for you. And then also, we want to talk about the intensity of the color, right? And then the longevity. So what is going to give you a little bit more longevity within your color range? Is that going to be your permanents, your demis, which the answer is yes. So even within the demi range, you're going to have some that you'll get some slight shifting of the base and a lot more gray blending opportunities, whereas in some of your more acidic ranges, you're going to get more shine, 0 lift, but maybe a little bit less longevity. I definitely use them to tone. Within Wella, there's really 2 options that are my favorite. Now, Colestone Perfect would probably be something that I grab for the least when it comes to toning. And Illumina would probably be something I grab for the most when it comes to permanent hair color toning. So that's what our color touch is gonna be to something like Shinefinity, or a lot of people use Shades EQ, or it could be Shades EQ. So Shinefinity, or an acidic toner, versus your color touch, which is a demi, there's going to be options within your demi range. And you've got to know what and when and why to choose for these different things. So I really try to talk everybody into gray blending to enhance their natural hair versus like that shoe polish, but we know that clients love to cover their gray, and sometimes you just need that opaque coverage. But I try as best I can to talk them into something like color touch, because I know that I can get 50 to 75% gray coverage, and there's usually a couple of different developer options within your demi range, which is going to change how much lift you get and how it, reacts to the hair. The only difference is there's one that's thinner, one that's a little thicker. So if you want to use it for the bowl and brush or you want to use it for the bottle, but it has the same impact on the hair, which is zero lift. So if you have a gloss or a glaze like Shinefinity, then you're getting zero lift and zero damage. So now that we've talked about the formulation for your toning and what options you would use, more saturation, less saturation, what has more or less longevity, and what has more or less intensity. So if my natural level is a 6, I'm using a 4, 5, or 6, right? To kind of mimic their natural. Sometimes you could use something that is close. So say within that micro root, you wanted to just use a level 8 to get a little bit of softness. You're still gonna have somewhat of a line of demarcation when it grows out from their natural level 6. Now, how I apply a root shadow, especially if it's something that I really want it to be transitional, like say there are big ribbons of color that I'm weaving throughout the hair, and I really want to make sure that there's a soft effect at the root, and I need to pull it down past those lines of demarcation to just get rid of anything that is unwanted. So within a root shadow, again, 1 to 3 levels darker than the natural. So all over the root area, however far down that root goes, allow that to sit for about 10 minutes. Then go back in, or typically as you're done applying the root, you can kind of start the process at the back because this is already sat for 10 minutes. And by the time you work your way to the front, this is already sat for 10 minutes. As you draw that root color past some of the lines of demarcation within your highlights. Spray the hair, comb it down all the way through, and that's gonna be your root shadow. So that's another thing to discuss is when do you use these different techniques and which one do you choose? I feel like when you're lifting somebody, whether you want to ask yourself, what type of a look is this? Like something to make sure that you're handling, or you might want to do that micro root because they want to see more of the highlights into a color melt on the ends. She had just lots of dark and a lot of mineral buildup on her ends, so they were pretty warm, but she wanted a warm, natural looking blonde color. She wanted all over to look like she's glowing with natural warmth and pretty blonde, but that meant that we needed to lift out some of that like unwanted brassiness that just didn't sit well tonal wise, and we needed to shift her base. We needed to lift her to something that was a little bit more of that kind of toasty, just like went on a vacation, natural color with some baby lights and some foliage in between. So from the top of the crown to behind the ears and back, I did mostly emphasize my lightener placement on the mid-lengths through ends. You can see we definitely applied a lot through the back, but just a little bit of baby lights throughout, just enough to cover that partial area. We applied number 2 to build the bonds in her hair, and then shampoo, conditioned, and now I'm applying my root. So basically it's a level 8 mixed with a pastel developer that is going to shift the base. So for her big reveal, you can see her natural level 7 is now this glowing kind of just like roasty blonde. This is true in every color line, in every situation. You have levels 1 through 10. You have what those levels are and the description of them. Then you have the underlying tone, right? And the counteractive tone, or the tone that, neutralizes them. So you need to memorize these 1 through 10 and exactly what does that look like. When you're lifting a level 2 hair to a level 8, right? So you're gonna actually have to lift that hair to a level 9 and then tone it down to a level 8, utilizing your violet to counterbalance the gold. So you would have to lift that hair to yellow and then use violet, and you would get a violet level 8, okay? You have to lift it to that level 9 and double up on your ash. So that caramel with a little bit of copper in it, something like that, we would not have to lift to a level 9.